Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tirabhanachari. Yamuna Tirabhanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tirabhanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Sotira Sutta Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Stotira Sutta Shri Srimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamunamai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 25, Text 12. Maitreya uvāca. Iti sva-mātur. No, sorry. I got it. Yeah, I got it. Okay, hang on. Iti sva-mātur niravadyam īpsitam. Iti sva-mātur niravadyam īpsitam. Niśamya puṁsām apavarga-vardhanam. Niśamya puṁsām apavarga-vardhanam. dhiyābhinandyātmavatāṁ satāṁ gatir. dhiyābhinandyātmavatāṁ satāṁ gatir. babhāṣa īṣat-smita-śobhitānanaḥ. babhāṣa īṣat-smita-śobhitānanaḥ. Maitreya uvāca. Iti sva-mātur niravadyam īpsitam. niśamya puṁsām apavarga-vardhanam. Dhiyābhinandyātmavatāṁ satāṁ gatir. Babhāṣe īṣat-smita-śobhitānanaḥ. Others? Maitreya uvāca.
sva-mātur niravadyam īpsitaṁ niśamya puṁsām apavarga-vardhanam dhiyābhinandyātmavatāṁ satāṁ gatir babhāṣe īṣat-smita-śobhitānanaḥ.
Vaishnavis. Maitreya uvāca. Maitreya said, Iti, thus, sva-mātuḥ, of his mother, niravadyam, uncontaminated, īpsitam, desire, niśamya, after hearing, puṁsām, of people, apavarga, cessation of bodily existence, vardhanam, increasing, dhiyā, mentally, abhinandya, having thanked, ātma-vatām, interested in self-realization, satām, of the transcendentalists. Gatir, the path. Babhāṣe, he explained. īṣat, slightly. Smita, smiling. Śobhita, beautiful. ānanaḥ, his face. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her. Sorry, let me read it again. The Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Purport. Devahuti has surrendered her confession of material entanglement and her desire to gain release. Her questions to Lord Kapila are very interesting for persons who are actually trying to get liberation from material entanglement and attain the perfectional stage of human life. Unless one is interested in understanding his spiritual life or his constitutional position, and unless he also feels inconvenience in material existence, his human form of life is spoiled. One who does not care for these transcendental necessities of life and simply engages like an animal in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating has spoiled his life. Lord Kapila was very much satisfied by his mother's questions because the answers stimulate one's desire for liberation from the conditional life of material existence. Such questions are called apavarga-vardhanam. Those who have actual spiritual interests are called sat, or devotees, satāṁ prasangat. Sat means that which eternally exists, and asat means that which is not eternal. Unless one is situated on the spiritual platform, he is not sat, he is asat. Asat stands on a platform which will not exist, but anyone who stands on, did I read that right? The asat stands on a platform which will not exist, but anyone who stands on the spiritual platform will exist eternally. As spirit soul, everyone exists eternally, but the asat has accepted the material world as his shelter, and therefore he is full of anxiety. Asat grahan, the incompatible situation of the spirit soul, who has the false idea of enjoying matter, is the cause of the soul's being asat. Actually, the spirit soul is not asat. As soon as one is conscious of this fact and takes to Krishna consciousness, he becomes sat. Satāṁ gatir. The path of the eternal is very interesting to persons who are after liberation, and His Lordship Kapila began to speak about that path. Om Agyanatamiram Dasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupakadamayam Didati Swaparantikam. So, there are several important messages that Prabhupada is communicating to us here in this purport. First one that struck me was, unless one is interested in understanding his spiritual life or his constitutional position, and unless he also feels inconvenience in material existence, his human form of life is spoiled. One who does not take care of these transcendental necessities of life and simply engages like an animal, in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating, has spoiled his life. So that's a message that we hear very frequently from Srila Prabhupada in many purports and lectures and like that. Once he communicated that to somebody in a humorous way. There was this man in Bombay, Mr. Sethi, very nice man. He actually had a construction company. He wound up being the person who built and I believe definitely rebuilt, I'm not sure if he built it in the first place, the makeshift temple that they had in Mumbai before they were actually able to establish a temple. So when they first met, Prabhupada asked him, so what are your activities? And Mr. Sethi said, well, I get up in the morning, I have a cup of tea, I go to the bathroom, and I go to work. And Prabhupada said to him, so what is the difference between you and a pig? I found that humorous. And Mr. Sethi was, he was a devotee at heart, so he kind of understood where Prabhupada was coming from. And he said, well, Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada elaborated a little bit. He says, where's your sadhana? You just get up and you have to do some chanting, some devotional activity. And he said, well, I'm not practiced, and I have no association. So Prabhupada instructed Madhavisa, said every Sunday, right after Mangal Arati, you go with all the devotees to Mr. Sethi's house and perform Nagar Sankirtan. And they started doing that. And Mr. Sethi said they did that for a year. So they all day long they would have Sankirtan, Nagar Sankirtan, throughout the surrounding the neighborhood, and then they'd come back and have a big feast at Mr. Sethi's house. So in that way he became a devotee. So that was interesting way that Prabhupada communicated that message on that occasion. So just kind of going back and working my way through the translation and purport, the first one thing that caught my interest or attention in the translation was how it says, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions. And I was just reflecting on that. And there's a lot of things that happen like that in life, where the person doesn't express. Lord Kapila didn't say anything. He didn't say, well, thank you, but within himself. And as he made note of it, and it, kind of factored in there. And so as I said, there's a lot of things that happen, probably the vast majority of things that happen. There's not a lot, it's not verbal communication about, but people are, observing and evaluating. And that goes on even on a very high level. I found something really interesting. I heard something what I thought was very interesting yesterday, or the day before, in a lecture Prabhupada was giving in Gorakhpur. I believe it was 1970, 70 or 71. And I kind of copied and pasted and did a light edit for clarity, but I think feel pretty confident I kept Prabhupada's main points intact. So I'll just read you this. This is an example of what I was just saying, how things are observed and evaluated on a very high level. And this is an interesting example. So Prabhupada says, there are Vishnu Dutas also. This is Yamaraj speaking. Prabhupada's paraphrasing Yamaraj's speech to the Yamadutas. There are Vishnu Dutas also. Vishnu Duta means devotees, the devotee of Lord Vishnu. The Yamadutas are traveling everywhere. Similarly, there are Vishnu Dutas also. They are also seeing, inspecting what kinds of actions we are actually performing. Just like you are Yamadutas, similarly, they are Vishnu Dutas. They also travel all over the universe. These Vishnu Dutas, they are not only worshipable by common men, but they are worshipable by the demigods. There is no use to become envious. Now this is Prabhupada speaking as himself. There is no use to become envious of a devotee, because the devotee, a pure devotee, will always be protected by these Vishnu Dutas, as they have protected Ajamil. So I thought that was pretty far out. And then Prabhupada somebody asked a question to Prabhupada. They said, the Vishnu Dutas, are they traveling through all the planets or only where there are devotees? And Prabhupada said, all the planets, everywhere there are devotees. And then in conclusion he said, so as there are Yamadutas, they are arresting all sinful persons. Similarly, the Vishnu Dutas, they're always protecting the devotees. And then he paused and then he quoted, Narayana parasarve na kutasjana bijati. Therefore, those who are devotees, they are not afraid of anything because they know confidently that Krishna is there. That is one of the items of surrender, which means Krishna will give me all protection. Avasya rakshibe Krishna vishvasya palana. To be firmly convinced that Krishna will give me all protection. Therefore, instead of trying to protect myself, a devotee should always remain dependent upon Krishna. I thought that was kind of related. This point here about how a lot of things are observed and evaluated, but not necessarily externally responded to. So the Vishnu Dutas are there protecting devotees. So in the purport here, it's expressed that Devahuti surrendered her confession of material entanglement of her desire to gain release. So I was thinking a bit about that. A confession is a formal statement, an admission of guilt about something. So she's confessing to Kapila Dev that basically she feels I was in Maya, I mean, that's what she's, and she's asking for relief from the material entanglement. So I was thinking about that, and some thoughts I had about that were, well, was she really in Maya? I mean, she's saying she's in Maya, but sometimes a devotee says they're in Maya. That doesn't necessarily mean they're in Maya. Like, for instance, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he said, Purusher kite muise la vista, jagai madai hoite muise papista, more nam yeloi tada panchagras, something like that. Pretty close. That he says, I'm lower than the worm in the stool, and I'm more sinful than jagai madai. And anybody who takes my name, they immediately become fallen, like that. So Prabhupada said about that, Prabhupada said, he was genuinely feeling like that, but we shouldn't think that that was his position. He's our esteemed master. So I was kind of reflecting, I wonder if Devahudi is in that same position. I mean, she's saying, I'm in Maya, please preach to me, but was she really in Maya? I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, we heard back probably about a month ago that her interaction with Kardama Muni, the way they traveled around the universe and they had 9 daughters and a son, that was all predicted by Lord Vishnu, correct? He told Kardama Muni when he first appeared to him that, okay, this is what's going to happen. This girl's going to come, you're going to marry her, you're going to have 9 daughters, and then I'm going to appear as your son. So it was all part of Krishna's plan. So, I mean, was she really in Maya? Which, makes you think, is it something like, Arjuna was put into illusion so the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken, and Maharaj Parikshit was put into illusion so the Srimad Bhagavatam could be spoken. Maybe it's something along those lines. I don't know the actual answer to that question, whether it's something that she was put into Maya, made to think that she was in Maya, so that Kapila could instruct her, or if it was, or what was going on there. But anyway, it was interesting. And another thing I was reflecting upon was her relationship with Kapila, because she's Lord Kapila's mother, okay? But now she's becoming his disciple. Mother Yasoda didn't do that. This is a little different. So what's the loving feeling? Because that's the essence of the whole Bhagavatam, right? Nigama kalpataro galitam. This is, the loving feeling that these interactions are conducted with. So what's the loving feeling there? Is she vatsalya ras, and it's just like the mother hearing from her son, or is she in like dasharas? Because the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple is more dasharas, or is it a combination? It's been I have to admit, it's been some years since I read the latter chapters, portions of the Nectar of Devotion, but if I'm remembering correctly, it's possible that there's a primary rasa and then there's a secondary rasa. Sometimes they overlap. So perhaps she's primarily in vatsalya rasa. I mean, after all, she just finished being his mother for. He's old enough now for Kardama Muni to leave home, right? And so he's it doesn't state the exact age of Kapila Muni when this whole is happening, but I mean, I imagine he's a teenager at least. That's, the picture makes him look kind of young, but in any event, but so she's been his mother all these years, and now she's becoming the disciple. So once again, I don't know the exact answer. I think maybe some predecessor acharyas may have commented upon this in their commentaries, but that was something that I wanted to think, was thinking about. Getting back to Mr. Seti, and his interaction with Prabhupada, I'm going to kind of develop that, because another point that comes out here in this purport is that ultimately, to get this divya gyan, this transcendental knowledge, it really requires getting the mercy of a superior personality. It's not something that, despite a lot of hard work, that one can necessarily get it. That ingredient has to be there, the mercy of a superior personality. So I'm going to try to illustrate that point by giving some more details about Mr. Seti's association with Srila Prabhupada. Mr. Seti met Srila Prabhupada as I mentioned, for the first time, and that was their interaction. But then in the later conversation, Prabhupada said he was telling Prabhupada that, you have to put these pylons, before you start the construction, you have to have, it's like a pillar that they put into the ground to establish a foundation, to put the building on. So Prabhupada was going, no, our land doesn't need pylons. And Mr. Sethi was, Prabhupada, no, I think they need, because he's a construction, person. He said, no, the Prabhupada, you're going to put a big structure, they need the pylons. So Sethi called in a soil specialist, and the soil specialist said, yeah, definitely, you need the pylons on this land. And Prabhupada said, no. And then Sethi called in a construction engineer, and same thing, he gave the same opinion. Yeah, no, you definitely have to have the pylons. And so then went back to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no, our land doesn't need pylons. Prabhupada says, look, just get one of these, a bore, somebody like the bore walla. And that's how they said he referred to it. And so they got this, a guy who had a drill, and he bored into the land, and he went, his instrument or his machine went 5 feet, only 5 feet, which is like, into the ground, and then it got stuck. It got jammed. He couldn't pull it out. Normally if it's just soft earth, you bore in and you can pull it out. They couldn't pull it out. They had to, reverse the screwing like that. So they went back, and Prabhupada said, okay, Mr. Sethi, when that happened, he realized, oh, this is no ordinary person. Because despite his opinion, the soil specialist's opinion, the structural, construction engineer's opinion, Prabhupada was stuck to his guns, and sure enough, he was right. It didn't need the pylons. They told him you could put an 8-story building on this land and, have no problem, without doing those pylons. So Mr. Sethi was pretty impressed by that. And then another occasion, Sethi was ill with something, and he was in the hospital, and he had these, what do you call it? When they put the tubes in you? IVs, yeah, sorry, I just couldn't remember. He had IVs in him. So Prabhupada told him, take those IVs out. You don't have to have those. And he says, no, the doctor said I should have to keep them in here, I'll die, Prabhupada said, you're not going to die. He said, you're not going to die from from this disease you have if you take out these, the IVs. And so Sethi was submissive. I mean, he already just had this other experience with Prabhupada. So he said, okay, he took out the IVs and he threw them, in the garbage like that. And Prabhupada stayed with them for 2 hours. And then after 2 hours, Prabhupada said to him, so, you see, you're not dead. I told you you're not going to die. And Sethi said, yeah, I was worried I was going to die. And this was interesting, this next part. And so Prabhupada says, no, you cannot die yet. You made a promise to Krishna, and you have yet to fulfill that promise. And the way Sethi was telling the story, it wasn't, he didn't indicate that he had said something to Prabhupada before him. Sethi actually, he was thinking, well, what is he talking about? What's it? And then he was reflecting, and then he remembered after a while that, oh yeah, when I was a young man, he came from Pakistan as a young man with nothing. And he prayed to Krishna, Krishna, give me a house and give me a lakh of rupees, and so I can get myself established, and I'll do something for you. I'll build a temple for you like that. So, and he remembered that, and once again, he was amazed. How did Prabhupada know that, So that was another thing. And then another incident was when Prabhupada was, kind of in litigation about the land, the ownership of the land, because this man, Mr. Nair, he was in the practice of, he takes some money from some concern as a deposit on the land, there's a payment on the land, and then, but with some stipulation that you have to do this and this by a certain time, otherwise, you forfeit your deposit. And so he was trying to do that to Prabhupada. That was one of the, the big problem there. And so Sethi was going to Prabhupada, he was saying, Mr. Nair, he has an offer from this other person, and it's for much more than what the amount of money that you gave him. I don't think he's going to give you the land. And Prabhupada says, fine, that's okay. Let him return our money, and we'll vacate the land tomorrow. We'll vacate the land today. Let him return our money, And Seti goes, yeah, but he's not going to, I don't think you're going to get it. Seti goes, he has too much that he has to pay in taxes. And Prabhupada said, I don't think he'll be able to pay the taxes in this lifetime. Prabhupada made that statement, which was, okay. And Prabhupada left that day for Australia. And the next morning he got a phone call from, I forget who, but he got a phone call from the devotee saying, Mr. Nair just had a heart attack and he died. So, once again, it's kind of far out. Prabhupada said that, and then the next day he got that phone call and that had happened. But gets more interesting that after Mr. Nair passed away from the heart attack, his wife, being a loyal, dutiful wife, she took up the cause. She figured, okay, well, we were doing this, my husband and now I have to continue. So she was litigating, she was suing ISKCON for this and that, She was going for it. She wanted to do what her husband had set out to do, which was get the land back from ISKCON or cheat him out of the money, etc. So at one point she came to the place where the temple was supposed to be, and before that happened, actually, I can't remember that. I'm losing the chronological sequence. Well, I'll just tell the story. Maybe I have to backtrack a bit. But okay, so she got there, and she's there with her attorney, and they're waiting to see Prabhupada. And then she says to the attorney, she's coming there with the, with the lawsuits and the papers, She says to the attorney, okay, wait here, I'm going to talk to Guruji first, and then I'll call you in when I need you. So she went in. This is I'm repeating how Seti told the story, okay? So she goes in to talk to Prabhupada. Within a short time, 5-10 minutes, she comes back out, and she tells the lawyer, she says, I'm surrendering to Guruji. I don't need you. You can go home. You can go home. I'll pay you for your coming with me today, for the work you've done. But I've decided I'm surrendering to Guruji. I don't want to go forward with this. So he was astounded, but she's the boss, so he's okay. He went. So then, going forward a little bit, I don't know how much time, but so another occasion, Seti is coming to see Prabhupada, and he sees that lady, the Mrs. Nair. She's outside waiting in the courtyard there, and she's weeping. And when she sees Seti, she says, please tell Guruji that I apologize. I'm very sorry for how much trouble I've caused him, ISKCON, and the devotees. Please ask him to forgive me, And then it wasn't clear to me whether they brought her in to see Prabhupada, or he just saw Prabhupada, conveyed the message, but Prabhupada, either upon seeing her and hearing that, or after hearing it from Seti, his thing was, tell her she has nothing to worry about. She'll have no problems from this point onwards. No problems from this point. So that, they told her that. And then Seti explained that actually what happened was, up until that point, she couldn't sleep at night. She kept seeing her husband, whether it was a nightmare or some paranormal type of thing. She felt like she was experiencing her husband's soul hovering over her body or something. Anyway, she couldn't sleep. She was very disturbed. And but from that point onwards, nothing. She told, Prabhupada said, from this point onwards, she'll have no further trouble. And from that point onwards, she had no further trouble. That problem just went away completely. And and then the final thing was, and this anecdote met Seti. So one time after this is, things are moving forward, and Mr. Seti was involved with the construction, and so that day he was working himself. He was he was right on site, and he was all dirty with cement and dirt from being there on the construction site. Normally his habit was he would go see Prabhupada at the end of the day. He would go for the darshan. But he was thinking, I can't today because I'm too dirty and everything. I don't feel comfortable. But then he kind of preached to himself, no, but I should go. To see Prabhupada anyway. So what? So he decided he went, despite the fact that he was all cemented and dirty and everything. Prabhupada was very happy to see him. very happy to see him. Prabhupada, they loved each other. Seti loved Prabhupada, and Mr. Seti and Prabhupada loved him too. So Prabhupada was very happy to see him and said, and he could see that, he was coming in his work clothes and he was full of cement and dust and everything. And Prabhupada said, Seti, just as you are building a place for my devotees to live, a place is being built for you in Goloka Vrindavan. And then Seti said, Prabhupada, I'm a sinful man. I cannot go to Goloka Vrindavan. How is that possible? And Prabhupada said, never you mind. He said, that is my duty. That is none of your business, basically. He told him, that is my duty. That is not your duty. You're going back there. So Seti was kind of like, as he was describing this, he was very overwhelmed by that, I mean, he firmly believed what Prabhupada was saying. And he said, such a big thing, He was marveling at the power, the prowess, the amazing ability of the pure devotee that, here he was a devotee at that point. I don't know if he was chanting 16 or whatever, but, the guru is saying, don't worry, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to make a place for you in Goloka Vrindavan. So that was his appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. And if you have, it's on the Prabhupada Memories series, Mr. Seti. And when you listen to him speak, it's very interesting because his English is good in the sense that it's obviously he understands everything, but like most people, it's, you can say less than what you understand. So, it's kind of like you could sense that he's thinking in his original language, Marathi or Hindi or whatever it was, and he's thinking to say each word. He's speaking slowly, but it's from the heart. And it's very powerful. He's not like an eloquent speaker in terms of language, but what he's saying is very much coming from the heart, and it's very powerful. When you listen to it, you just kind of, it sort of silences you, and you feel like, whoa, this guy's really got some real devotion and love for Prabhupada. That comes through. So once again, point being that ultimately we have to get the mercy. Like this is. Devahuti, she's trying to get the mercy. She understands, okay, I'm the mother, but this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she's trying to get the mercy of a superior person, her son, Lord, who happens to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila. This we have to follow in the footsteps. Have to follow in the footsteps of Devahuti and Mr. Seti. Try to get the mercy. It's actually. Ultimately, that's what's required in order to get out of this entanglement of the material existence. Just like an effort alone, that's necessary, but not sufficient. Two ingredients. That's one ingredient that has to be there, but the other thing that has to be there is the mercy of a superior person, the guru or Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one interesting thought I had on that note was that I was remembering a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. It goes, Raga dvesai vimuktais tu vishayan indriyas charan atmar vishar vidhayatma prasadam adhigacchati. The translation is, but a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. And towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada says, therefore, to act or not act is within that person's control because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord. See, ultimately, it's the causeless mercy of the Lord. It's not something that you work and you make something. It's awarded. It's the causeless mercy of the Lord, which a devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform. I thought that was really far out. And, I feel like I experienced that the other day, to be honest with you. When we went to Rath Yatra, I was down at the site, setting up the table, and, the time was ticking on. It was getting closer to the time of the parade, and I was thinking, well, will I go to the parade or won't I go to the parade? I mean, I could stay here and just distribute. There are people who come through the site, even early, and I've been in a bunch of these parades, I kind of know what it's all about. But anyway, at the last minute, I just decided to go. Somebody hopped in a car and we went. And, I was feeling like ordinary person. I just got up, went down to the side, I was working for an hour or two, setting up the table and this and that. And, then I got there, and I got there about just 5 minutes before 10, or maybe even less, just a few minutes before 10. All the devotees were there, the kirtan was going, And when I got there, at first I forgot. I was just looking at everything that was going on, and then I realized, I didn't even pay obeisances, So I paid obeisances, when I saw the deities up on the cart, and then I got up and I started chanting with everybody else with the kirtan, and I immediately started experiencing a higher taste. I immediately started feeling like some transcendental consciousness. Nothing to the extent of tears weren't flowing from my eyes, my hairs weren't standing on end or anything like that. It's like if you have a low-grade fever. Definitely something was there. I was experiencing some transcendental consciousness, but not so much that I was, overwhelmed. Or I was still on the central platform. The rest of me was still there too, in other words, that, I was still seeing all the different people. I was still seeing the beautiful young girls. I was still seeing, feeling the heat or the cold. That was there too, but at the same time, simultaneously, this transcendental consciousness was there. And so I was reminded of this verse, but it's mercy. It's just mercy, by the mercy of the spiritual master, by the mercy of the Lord. I'll just read that sentence again. It says here, this consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve. He kind of does achieve it and doesn't achieve it. It's a blessing, it's a gift, which the devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform. In other words, when the spiritual master or Krishna within the heart or both, when they see we're sincere, they can bless us with this consciousness, despite the fact that we're still in a lower level. We're still attached to the sensual platform to some degree or another. And an analogy that came to mind, it's just like if you're in an airplane and it's a very rainy, cloudy day, and you're in the airplane. So when you get in the airplane, you're in the airplane, but it's raining, it's clouding, and even the plane takes off, for the first 5-10 minutes of the flight, it's raining and it's cloudy, but you're going up. You're experiencing the bad weather, you're experiencing the rain, outside the plane, and it's all clouded, you can't see the sun, but you're going up, so you're confident that it's okay. Just let's give this another 5-10 minutes, everything's going to be good. So it's like that. That's my understanding of devotional service in the lower stages. That you get that mercy, but at the same time we're still kind of in the material world. But we can be confident that it's okay. I just got to persevere, keep going. We're going up, just like in that airplane. It's going up. So I think that's. Oh yeah, and one last point was that an important part of getting the mercy of the spiritual master, Prabhupada, one of his final instructions was, you'll show your love for me by how much you cooperate to spread this movement after I'm gone. So cooperation is an important point, and a very important part of cooperation is cooperating with our authorities, right? And it's a mood that should be done in, and it shouldn't. Prabhupada once told this anecdote. This is like a humorous story of these two friends. That these two friends got together, and one friend said to the other friend, "Did you know that so-and-so became a high court judge?" And the other friend said, "No." "So-and-so? Nah, forget it. He couldn't become a high court judge." And the first friend said, No, honest, really, I saw. I was there. I passed the court. He's in the court. He's a high court judge. I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, anyway," the second friend goes, "Anyway, even if he is, I don't think he's getting any salary." In other words, couldn't give him any credit. He was envious. So in other words, our cooperation shouldn't be in that spirit that so-and-so, yeah, well, I guess he's the authority or something, but anyway, so what? I don't have to cooperate. I don't have to really try to please the person, I acknowledge, okay. But no, that shouldn't be our attitude. We don't want to have the attitude of the two envious friends towards the other friend that became the high court judge. Be prepared to kind of like, okay, wonderful. I'm so glad that you're in this position. Let me cooperate. Let me help you do your service. That's I think the preferable attitude to have. Okay, that's all I have to say. Does anybody have any question they'd like to ask or comment they'd like to make? I guess Rabindranath had his hand up first. Yeah, right. Of course, that's what you just said. That's a correct statement. I'm talking about on a lower stage. In other words, when somebody is like more neophyte, if they're sincere, Krishna can understand, the spiritual master can understand when somebody's being sincere, and it's like an encouragement. That, like, as I read that sentence twice, that that this consciousness is a devotee can be blessed by that consciousness, despite being attached to the sensual platform. So it's like it's a gift. It's a blessing from Krishna, the spiritual master, to encourage that person. But you have to, it's not like you're a pure devotee at that point. No, you got to keep trying. You got to keep trying to advance and make progress. But that is there. I mean, at least that's my understanding of that sentence. That despite the fact that you're not a very advanced devotee, you can still get some mercy from Krishna, Guru and Krishna, while still attached, to the sensual platform. But ultimately, yeah, as you just pointed, ultimately one has to become free from all material desire in order to be able to go back to Godhead in the next lifetime. That sound okay? Satchidananda, and then Bhakti-avatar. Well, that's a big subject, obviously, but the one first thing that pops to my mind would be that person who's lost faith due to a bad experience with working with somebody should try to find somebody he still has faith in, and take shelter of that person and get guidance from that person, to rebuild his faith. Not necessarily in that person he had the bad experience with, maybe that's not possible, but take shelter of somebody you have faith in. I mean, there's a lot of devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement, and there must be somebody that we feel like, wow, that person's really doing it right, and that he's got it right, and we could take shelter of that person and try to get encouragement and inspiration from them. You want to add something to that, or no? Yeah. And Bhakti-avatar, and then I guess we'll end there. Yep, I'm going to pass the mic over to him. Oh God. Who did they bring it on a stretcher? Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And he had Prabhupada's guarantee as well. And one little comment. The reason I selected this example of Seti and these two people from Bombay is, a lot of times you hear devotees in these memories of Prabhupada, they say, oh, and I saw Prabhupada, and I'm not saying it's not true, but I saw Prabhupada and I felt like he saw right through me, and I felt, this and that. And that's, and I'm not trying to be cynical, I believe those are genuine things that they're experiencing, but, part of my mind sometimes goes, it's like a paid political announcement. I mean, devotees, you expect a devotee to say something like that because we're devotees, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, devotees saying glorifying the spiritual master, yeah, but like in the case of Mr. Seti, and even more extreme in the case of Mrs. Nair, it's like it's so obvious the power, the impact Prabhupada had on people's lives. Seti, okay, he wasn't like a disciple, but Prabhupada had an incredible impact on him. But Mrs. Nair, she came to the very, up until the moment she met Prabhupada, she was coming there to serve him with papers, for a suit, a legal case. And she spent some time with Prabhupada and she got completely transformed. I mean, that was like, when I heard that, I was just, wow. She came in the mood of enmity, and she met Prabhupada and just, he completely disarmed her and transformed her to the point where she comes out and she goes, I'm surrendering to Guruji. You can go. I don't need you. And then, just shortly thereafter, she's weeping in the courtyard, asking Seti to go, please ask Prabhupada to forgive me for all the trouble I've caused him and ISKCON and the devotees. That's powerful. That's amazing that happened. Okay, anyway, I'll end there. Thank you. Yeah, one last comment. And then not working? I'm going to take this one.
We're speaking about Mumbai. I'm at the end of this, I'll build you a temple. And there was one particular life member who had a habit of going and constantly debating with Prabhupada and arguing with him. He liked Prabhupada a lot, but they were always debating and arguing on philosophical topics. When it was time for Prabhupada to go from Bombay to Vrindavan, it was clear that Prabhupada was going to be leaving his body. And so Giriraj Swami called this devotee and asked him to bring Prabhupada to the airport, to the train station. When they get to the train station, they thought the train was going to be at 11, but it had been rebooked at 10:30. And at that time, you didn't have, the electric screens or anything. Everything was done through the newspaper. So they all thought the train was at 11, but it was actually at 10:30, and it was 10:25 when they reached there. So they had to go through like this whole ordeal to get Prabhupada on the train. And this man, he helped Prabhupada, and then they get Prabhupada on the train. And when they get Prabhupada on the train, Prabhupada calls this man to get on the train. And he whispers into the man's ear, "Thank you very much for driving me." And the man at that point completely surrendered to Prabhupada. He fell over and he put his feet to Prabhupada's head, and he completely surrendered to him. And then when he got back to the car, on his steering wheel, Prabhupada had left his garland. And so the man, he realized that up to that point he was arguing and bickering and debating with Prabhupada, but that at the very last moment, he surrendered to Prabhupada.